Next up for question 3, I have Joel Rivera. Let me bring you on Spotlight. Joel, take it away.
Hey everybody, thank you, Jonathan. It's great to be here in community with so many folks. I appreciated hearing from um, Auditor DeZoglio again. We saw each other recently at another one of these, so it's good to see you again. Kara, it's good to say hello to you virtually. Jonathan, I love your boo and vote sign in the background. It's my favorite part of October. Um, Hey everybody, thank you for having me. I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can. I'd like to go through some slides we've prepared explaining a bit more about our question and why we want you to vote yes on 3. Then I'll take some questions and I have the links already ready for you, Jonathan, because I've heard you ask the people before me. So I'm ready to go. Um, so let me thank you very much. I will share my screen. Can folks see my screen? Yes. It's the slideshow. Beautiful. Okay. I'm sure some questions will come up for folks. I'll hopefully this slide presentation will answer many of them. If not, I know Jonathan is combing through the questions and will give me hopefully the ones that I can answer before my time is up. So I'm Joel Rivera. Apologies for not introducing myself sooner. I am the deputy campaign manager on the Yes on 3 campaign. We want to vote yes on November 5th because we want to give Uber and Lyft drivers the option to form a union. I'll tell you a bit more about what that means, but Kara inspired me. I'm at the beach at the 32 Beach office right now. I have Yes on 3 shirts here, Yes on 3 lit as well. It's blurred out a little bit. But I'm here, we're doing the things. Very excited to be working on this campaign. So this is an ongoing organizing campaign. People have been doing this work for at least a couple years now. Um, there was a legislative campaign for the past year and a half that ultimately failed through the state legislature. So we are, like many progressive issues, going to the ballot, like we did with fair share, driver's licenses, earned sick time before that, and so many other important issues that have brought so many good things to our community. So at the end of the day, rideshare drivers need a union. Yes, on 3, the question addresses what we call TNC, or Transportation Network Company drivers, not delivery drivers. Within that TNC network, there's currently over 80,000 drivers who DPU has said can drive for Uber and Lyft. So it's a lot of workers who are there who don't yet have the power to join a union to be able to bargain collectively. Um, these drivers are concerned, right? We've been working with them, we've been listening to them. They said they want a union because these are the issues they're facing. Unjust deactivations. The Uber and Lyft can deactivate these drivers at the drop of a hat. Um, there's no process to that. There's no investigation. Uber and Lyft are like judge, jury, and executioner. We don't think that's fair. Many people who drive for Uber and Lyft do so at least part-time, if not full-time, more full-time than people think. And so we think it's very unfair for them to just take out their livelihood and not give them a chance to really follow up on it. Drivers have reported receiving less and less money from the rides. When they started out about 10 years ago, they used to receive 80% of their fares, and that Uber and Lyft have been slowly taking more and more of that. And there's no clarity on like how much they're supposed to get and why. Their pay is very unpredictable, which forces them to work longer hours for less money, which is not fair. And the drivers have also been exploited by these companies for many years. This shows us why we need a clear path forward, and we think that the best path forward right now is for them to be able to form a union so that they can work together to improve their working conditions. I want to share a couple, direct quotes from Uber and Lyft drivers who've been organizing with us. This is Yolanda Rodriguez. She drives for both companies, as most people who drive for Uber and Lyft do. Lyft deactivated my account, leaving me with a debt of $40,000. They don't care. We don't have a voice that represents us. We need a union that listens to us and represents us. Um, I'll get into this a little more, but we know that like Uber and Lyft, they just give them the app. The drivers take on every other expense, right? Many of them will like lease, they will get new cars so that they can be able to drive for Uber and Lyft. They'll get bigger cars, nicer cars to try to command a higher fare. One deactivation and they're saddled with tens of thousands of dollars of debt that they can't repay, and Uber and Lyft are not like accountable for it. This is Brisel. He's great. He spoke at our launch last week. He talked about what was frustrating about it is I keep going around in circles with customer service. I was calling for about a year without ever getting a clear reason about why I got deactivated. It's not the same when they're hearing 1,000 people or 500 people. So my message to other drivers is let's unionize. Super powerful at the state house, hundreds of drivers behind him. He's right. If it's one driver and we're all separate, it's not that powerful. But if there's 500 of us or 1,000 of us or 2,000 of us, we have strength in numbers. We have people power, and we need to use that. So people might be asking why we're doing this. Well, rideshare drivers, they don't currently have a mechanism to be able to form a union anywhere in the United States. The reason for that is because they're gig workers, and under the National Labor Relations Act, or the NLRA as people usually call it, they don't have a right to form a union. So what we're looking at, like many other progressive issues, is a state fix to a national problem. So we are trying to give them that right to form a union at the state level. These folks who work in the ride hail or rideshare business, it's not like traditional transportation companies. They take on all the costs, risks, and liability associated with their vehicles. The companies still have control, almost complete control of what's going on, though. But the individual workers are the ones who are saddled with this issue whenever taking folks from one place to another. People might wonder how we do this. Well, Massachusetts has already paved the way for these folks, rideshare drivers, to form a union. They've created similar systems statewide many years ago for childcare workers and for home health aides. Our SEIU family there with 519 and 1199. And those are also professions where workers perform their jobs independently and have very differing or variable schedules. So we've done stuff like this before. So it's definitely possible. There's precedent for it. And we can make this happen. The AG settlement. Some of you may have heard about this. This often confuses people. I'm going to do my best to clarify this, and if there's any questions afterward, I'll do my best to answer them. But so the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, she sued Uber and Lyft. She said that it wasn't right the way that Uber and Lyft were treating their employees here. They settled in July, I believe. Uber and Lyft have to pay $175 million, and they have to bring up the floor of their working conditions. They need key baseline standards for drivers, like a higher base pay, as well as a health insurance stipend, paid family medical leave, which is like the things that we have fought for, right? The SEIU, Raise in Massachusetts, our community, faith, and labor partners, the elected officials who have worked with us, we fought for these baseline protections that the AG said now Uber and Lyft have to give people. But again, I'm talking about, this is bringing up the floor. We're talking about trying to raise the ceiling. We're trying to give them an opportunity to be able to form a union and to be able to bargain collectively as Uber and Lyft drivers, as rideshare network drivers. So we know this industry changes very rapidly. We want them to be able to protect themselves and their families. So we're going to the ballot. Not to bury the lead there, we're on the ballot on November 5th. We want folks to vote yes on 3. Since July, the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, has come out in favor. Since then, we have a lot more endorsements, over 100 of them, including 50 state legislators. We have Ayanna Pressley and Jim McGovern on board as well. A bunch of community organizations from community, faith, and labor backgrounds. So we are moving. This is really like we're building a movement here. It's really wonderful to be a part of. So a yes vote would give Massachusetts rideshare drivers who work for places like Uber and Lyft the option to join a union. They are still able to maintain their flexibility and independence as gig workers. The option is guaranteed for most workers, but not for rideshare drivers. So we think that they should be given the same right as most other workers. With the union, they can negotiate with the companies on better wages, benefits, working conditions. Um, Individuals would be able to have representation, which would be really amazing. Um, Jonathan, how am I doing on time?
You can
Am I all right?
take like a minute or two, like maybe like another minute, and then I want to bring up some of the questions.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So, folks, I'm sure we'll have a question about processing. I'm going to put my email in the chat and we can follow up. But how it works is we'll give folks an option to form a union. They will then negotiate with Uber and Lyft collectively, and that agreement would be binding, sort of industry wide, right, in Massachusetts. So that's what we call sectoral bargaining in the industry. I'm still learning about some of this stuff. Um, it lays out a process to make it easier for folks to be able to form a union. Um, it creates an organizing process. So once we sign up 5% of drivers in the bargaining unit, they get a list of all the eligible workers. So one of the things that's hard about this is we don't know who is driving for Uber and Lyft. So getting that list means the drivers now know who to organize, which is really great. And then once we reach 25% of eligible voters, um, in the bargaining unit, it would become a certified bargaining representative of that union. And then they start bargaining. And again, it would be sort of industry wide with the other companies. Sectoral bargaining would cover all the folks who drive for the rideshare apps based in Massachusetts. And then lastly, the Secretary of Labor would need to review it. Once that's approved, it would become binding upon the entire industry. So bottom line, the drivers are launching something that's really first of its kind. No one else has won anything like this anywhere in the country. We hopefully will win November 5th, and that would be bargaining and unionization rights for more than 70,000 people across Massachusetts, which would be really amazing for our labor movement and our progressive movement. I can take questions now.
Awesome. And let me read out some of them from the chat. I see a question of and I think you touched on some of this, but just to reiterate, why can't drivers kind of currently create and join a union,
Yeah,
and why should voters be the ones deciding which professions and jobs have unions and which don't?
yeah. So why, can you repeat that, Jonathan? I'll write them down.
Yeah, it was like, why can't drivers currently create or join a union right now?
Yeah. So they can't currently do that right now because they're not because as independent contractors, they're not covered under the National Labor Relations Act, the NLRA, which is the law that gives a majority of workers the legal right to form a union. They're outside of that. And so we're trying to create a mechanism where these independent contractors in this narrow industry are able to form a union and be able to bargain collectively with those companies. So they currently don't have a mechanism. We're trying to create one. There's unlikely to be a national solution, so we're looking for a state solution.
Great. And then press reports that there will be legal challenges if this wins. What do you see as likely to happen in that regard?
I'm not sure that there will be. I mean, we have a strong legal team. I think they've written this in a way that is narrow and hopefully I guess like lawsuit proof. And I think if they do sue, I hope that we win. I think that we've done this work in a way that best sets up to win and to protect that win. Um, I think that we have as good of lawyers as they do, if not better. So I'll take our chances on that.
It's not something directly related to the question, but I appreciate the question about why some of these types of companies even exist because of the predatory practices from Uber and Lyft. So I appreciate the dislike of them. But the next question is kind of something noting about how that this leaves out kind of any kind of thoughts on why it leaves out workers who are, let's say, like the app-based delivery drivers, and what would be
Hmm.
like, how does this
Yeah,
not impact them?
yeah,
And then also a question about kind of reclassifying drivers as employees.
yeah. Those are two tough questions that we need a lot more time to talk about. I think the first one is less challenging. Um, we we have seen like our movement be vulnerable to legal challenges, like the relatability clause, they call it in Massachusetts. Fair share was thrown out in 2018 over that. I mean, the opposition, they don't have field game. They don't have power the way that we do. They throw money at ads, they throw money at like legal fees. So that's how they try to beat us. And so in 2018, they knocked fair share off the ballot. We had to wait 4 years to come back in 2022 and finally win. And I mean, they sued us in 22 too. We just won because we learned our lesson. And so we're trying to keep that lesson. We're trying to make this narrow and make this winnable and make this sort of like lawsuit proof in the future. Um, Personally, I think it would be great to include those delivery drivers and stuff too. I think they operate kind of in a different market. I think those workers um, maybe are not yet organized or organizing with other folks. And so what I can say is we're focused on the rideshare folks. And this doesn't mean we're cutting them out or leaving them out. We can always go back for more later. I think right now this is just the folks that we have that we've been organizing for years now. And this is what they've said that they want. And so that's what we are pursuing.
Kind of
Um,
great.
Second question you asked, Jonathan, was about what? Was
Oh,
another question?
they were about kind of other app-based drivers, and the other part was about kind of reclassifying drivers as
Yeah.
employees and kind
Yeah.
of this classification issue.
The classification question is a good one. That's something that we need a lot more time to talk about. I guess the short answer is um they were the settlement was partly about that, and the attorney general like did not answer that question and kind of punted the ball down the field. So we are not trying to solve that problem at the ballot, this issue of employee status. We are only trying to give them the right to form a union. Like that's it. This is a worker fight. We want them to have that right to form a union, like so many other folks and who are workers. So it's not. We are not tackling this issue. We're not furthering or worsening the debate of their employee status. I've gotten a couple times like, what happens if you win the right for them to form a union as like independent contractors and then Uber and Lyft make them employees? And I was like, you promise? Like, will they? Like that's great. We want them to have the rights of employees, right? Employees have the right to form a union. And so that would only be beneficial, right? That would only help us. I don't think that they would do that, but if they did, I don't think all of our work goes out the window. We've spent years organizing drivers, bringing them into our movement, educating them on our talking points, listening to them and letting them kind of lead the work that we've done over the past few years. And so I don't think that work goes out the window if Uber and Lyft like do the like perform a miracle and treat them like real people. I think that would be very surprising.
Great. And then I'm going to bundle a few, kind of, I think a few questions speak to the same thing. Do you have a sense, has there been any kind of polling done about what percentage of drivers support question three?
Yeah, like an overwhelming percentage of them support becoming for forming a union. I think some polls have it at like over 70%, some have it at over 80%. Drivers are overwhelmingly the ones that we've spoken to in support of being able to form a union. Um, I think that should come as little surprise to folks. I mean, as I said, folks have gotten smaller and smaller chunks of the fares. They are making like less money working long hours. They face unjust deactivations. They take on all the expense, all the risk of buying cars, paying for gas and maintenance with up until August 15th, no benefits at all. So I mean, when you offer them an opportunity to like a place to gather, to form a union, to be able to decide collectively on what they want and to be able to bargain for better wages, benefits, and working conditions, they like that. And we know as like movement folks that like the most important voice is the voice of impacted community. I tried to get a driver here today, but we couldn't find anybody whose schedule worked. But for almost all of these presentations that we're doing for folks, we're bringing a driver and we're splitting the time. I'll do my presentation and we'll have you hear from that person firsthand. But again, we have thousands of folks who've been organizing for years now. And what they're telling us is they want the right to form a union. And so that's what we are pursuing hand in hand with them. And that's what we're hoping to accomplish on November 5th.
Awesome. Let me just do two more questions so that I can get poll questions that haven't yet been asked, and we'll wrap up to get on to other ones. Um, do work like, is there a specific union that would end up representing the workers if they decide to form a union? Is that like there are a few questions about that, as well as a few questions, if you could I think you touched on this a bit, about what the lawsuit, like what was the status of the lawsuit from the Attorney General, of where that stands relative to this.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't have a great answer on who they would unionize with. I think that the possibility of 32BJ and the machinists who have been organizing them for all these years would be high. There's also, I think it's kind of like a legal question of what the entity looks like. Is it like a completely separate union? I think that we would maintain a close relationship with these drivers, whether they choose to unionize with us or with the machinists. They have a lot of drivers as well, and we tried to coordinate the driver side campaign and the ballot campaign. The lawsuit, how it plays, I mean, I think it's great to sort of bring up the floor. Again, I think that the Attorney General herself has spoken out that even though that settlement happened, she's still in support of Yes on 3 and them being the Uber and Lyft drivers being able to form a union. So I don't think it changes our fight. I think potentially it muddies the waters a little bit because it confuses people because they hear that they're like being treated a little better now. But I mean, if you think about it, that lawsuit wouldn't have happened if Uber and Lyft were treating their employees well, right? And who's to say they won't, like, their conditions won't stay the same, and 10 years later they'll still be making these like same wages with the same benefits when every other worker has come up and gotten like a much better working life. So I think that's what it's about. I mean, I think when I say they brought up the floor, I think that's great, and I don't mean to diminish the Attorney General's lawsuit at all. I think she did what she could within her power. What I'm saying is we think, and she's in agreement, that they should be able to form a union so that they can raise the ceiling, right? So that they can go back and fight for more, for better wages, better benefits, better working conditions. Because this is going to be a fight, every year or two, right? Whenever they have to negotiate new contracts and stuff, rather than waiting another 10 years for another lawsuit that's going to take several years to happen. I mean, these people need money and better benefits now. They're providing for their families, and so we don't want to mess with their livelihood.
Okay, so final thing, because we do have get to the other questions. Joel, if people want to learn more about question 3, where do they go?
Great question. Thank you very much. Our website is voteyeson3mass.com. You can follow us also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at voteyeson3mass. And you can also reach out to me, Joel Rivera, Deputy Campaign Manager. My email is joel.rivera@sau32bj.org. Also, when I stop sharing my screen, I can drop all these links in the chat so you have them as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I did want to
You.
say on our website, Jonathan, we
Yeah.
have an endorsements tab. If you could see this, and there's over 100 people in here, including elected officials and community organizations and labor unions. And we would love to add Progressive Mass to this list of folks supporting our cause.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Well, can I get a round of Zoom applause for Joel?